Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the seventh edition of Mock Draft Monday. My name is Mike, and today I am excited to announce that we are exactly 1 month away from the NFL draft. So, if you are a mathematician out there, or if you passed basic first grade, that means that we have four more editions just like this ready to go up until the actual draft. Now, my plan is to live stream the draft on YouTube. It's going to be my first live stream, so I'm pretty excited. So for those of you who are interested, mark your calendars. Join the fun. We're going to be talking through the draft. We're going to be live reacting to all of the selections, all of the picks, everything like that. That's my plan so far. And for those of you out there who haven't already subscribed to this channel, please do so. We actually had a big week. We're at 78 subscribers. I was literally just talking about hitting 69 in my last video, and now we're at 78. So we had a really good week. So thank you to all of you guys who subscribed to the channel. Big shout out to you guys. But without further ado, we're going to get into our mock draft Monday. And one big piece of news, which we're going to talk about in a video later today as well, is Lamar Jackson has officially announced a trade. He wants to get traded from the Baltimore Ravens. He doesn't feel like the Ravens are going to give him the value that he wants. He thinks that he's worth more than he's getting offered from the Ravens, so he's asked for a trade. So in this mock draft, we are actually going to play the Lamar Jackson gets traded away game, talking about that, talking through that, seeing what teams, if any, could kind of go ahead and get a trade for Lamar going, and then what that would do for the Ravens, how that would affect their draft, et cetera, et cetera. So, starting off with the first pick with the Carolina Panthers, there's been some talk that the Panthers are going to move the first overall pick, but I really don't think a team is going to trade for the first pick and then trade away. That seems counterintuitive to me to give up all those assets and then to trade off of the first overall pick. And from what I saw at the pro day, from what I've been hearing, in the streets on Twitter, I think the Panthers have a guy that they really like, and that's C.J. Stroud. I've mocked him the last ever since I've known the Panthers have the first overall pick. That's who's been my guess to be first overall is C.J. Stroud, and then number two for the Houston Texans. The obvious answer is Bryce Young, who a lot of people, myself included, have as the number one quarterback. I just think the shoe fits for him to go to Houston. Number three is where it gets interesting, but again, I just can't see Arizona taking a quarterback here with Kyler Murray still being under contract, and they're still very committed to Kyler Murray contractually, if nothing else. So I think the Cardinals are going to maybe try to trade off. I could see like the Raiders or the Falcons trying to move up, but I just don't know if it happens. So I'm going to have the Arizona Cardinals staying put and taking Will Anderson at third overall. In my opinion, the best defensive player in this draft, by far the best edge rusher, and that is who the Cardinals are going to take. Now, we're at number four, and number four gets pretty interesting because I think if there is going to be a team that's going to trade for Lamar Jackson and give the Ravens what they want, capital wise, it's going to be the Indianapolis Colts. Now, let's remind ourselves for a second here that the Ravens have put the non-exclusive franchise tag on Lamar Jackson, which means if any team offers him more than what the Ravens want, they have to give the Ravens 2 first-round picks in addition to that big sum of money for Lamar Jackson. So here's how I think this will play out. And I did just text my friend who is a big Ravens fan. I don't know if you guys remember, I had TTB Ravens Media on the channel. I just texted him not too long ago. Basically, what he said is the Ravens kind of have a lot of leverage here because if any team wants to trade for Lamar Jackson, the Ravens the Ravens can just match the offer, right? And so the Ravens are going to get more than 2 first-round picks if he's traded because if any team offers less than 2 firsts, the Ravens can just say, well, we'll match the offer, right? And again, at worst, the Ravens are going to get 2 firsts. But I think if there's a team that A, has the money, B, has the bigger need at quarterback, and C, has a crazy enough owner to do so, to give Lamar his big contract, to give the Ravens, 2 plus first-round picks, plus probably a few other picks, plus players, it would be the Indianapolis Colts. So I have the Indianapolis Colts trading for Lamar Jackson for the 2 first-round picks, so number 4, and then next year's pick. Michael Pittman Jr., the wide receiver, and a second-round pick. So 2 firsts, a second, and a wide receiver for Lamar Jackson. Now the Colts are going to pay him pretty much whatever the fuck he wants. And what that does for the Colts is 2 things. A, Lamar Jackson, obviously, is now a Colt. And B, I think that it saves money on Michael Pittman because they're going to have to pay Michael Pittman soon. So it saves money there. And now the Baltimore Ravens own the number 4 overall pick. And I think what quarterback to better replicate Lamar Jackson in this draft class than Anthony Richardson? I think the Ravens have designed an offense around Lamar Jackson and Tyler Huntley, in fairness, that is very dependent on the athleticism of their quarterbacks. That's very zone run heavy, very RPO heavy. And I think that the Ravens, it could be as seamless as possible if you're going from Lamar Jackson to Anthony Richardson. Not to mention, you're also saving lots and lots and lots of money. So I think the move for the Ravens is Anthony Richardson at number 4. Big, big story for the draft to watch out for. Watch out for any Lamar Jackson news. We've been hearing a lot of stories recently, with his agent, with his negotiations. Today, he just requested a trade, which make sure to watch the video on that later. But this would like totally dominate the sports world. This would be a huge, huge, huge story. So it's one to watch out for. Next, we have the Seattle Seahawks, who are going to take Tyree Wilson, the edge rusher out of Texas Tech. The Seahawks have done a lot to bolster their defense in this offseason. They re-signed Bobby Wagner a few days ago. They signed Draymond Jones, who I think is going to play more of a one-tech inside, if I had to guess. And Tyree Wilson is one of those edge rushers, you could pair with Darrell Taylor, who Darrell Taylor is a decent pass rusher, but he can't defend the run to save his life. Uchenna Nwosu had a great year last year for the Seahawks. So, getting another edge rusher, really securing that defense, because the Seahawks defense was their weak point last year. The offense, it carried its weight. Kenneth Walker and Geno and DK, those guys were fine. It's just the defense, and I think specifically the front seven. So they've made some moves in the offseason. They also signed Devin Bush. So they've signed 2 linebackers. They signed D linemen. They signed Jaron Reed back as well. So they need to just bolster up the edge rusher. So I have Tyree Wilson. Then ending the free fall of Jalen Carter here at number 6 with the Detroit Lions. I think the Lions will take a chance on him. I think pairing Jalen Carter with Aiden Hutchinson is crazy. It'll be awesome for their defensive line. And I think Dan Campbell believes in his culture and believes in his atmosphere enough to where they think that Jalen Carter can stay out of trouble and everything like that. So I think Jalen Carter is going to be a Detroit Lion. Next, we have the we have the Las Vegas Raiders taking a quarterback, taking the last of the big 4 off. They're going to go with Will Levis. Now, Will Levis is a guy who I don't think is very pro-ready, but he's got great intangibles. And I think that, the Jimmy G contract, he's going to be the starter for 2023. But in going forward, Will Levis can sit a year or two behind Jimmy G, learn, and then can take over. I feel like, big, strong kid in Vegas throwing to Devontae Adams. I'm pretty sure they like that idea in their heads. So they're going to go with Will Levis there at number 7. There for number 8, the Atlanta Falcons are going to take Quentin Johnston, the wide receiver out of TCU, pairing him with Drake London. Now, I think their original plan is going to be to take a quarterback. If maybe a Will Levis, Anthony Richardson falls to number 8, they'll do that. But if not, I think they're going to go best player available. And, Quentin Johnson, he's got a very high ceiling. He's very athletically gifted. Pairing him again with Drake London will give you a good evaluation of Desmond Ridder and what they have there. So I'm very interested to see what they do at number 8. Then with the Bears at number 9, they're going to go with Peter Skoronski out of Northwestern. The Bears need offensive linemen. They had a bunch of needs in this offseason. They've addressed some of them. They've addressed receiver. They need offensive linemen, and they need specifically tackles, I think. In my opinion, Cody Whitehair will be center. Tevin Jenkins will be the right guard. And then, maybe you can move Braxton Jones to the right side, and then, Skoronski could be left tackle. Either way, I think he's versatile enough to where you can move him around the line a little bit. So it'll all depend. But I think that Peter Skoronski and the Bears will go with a left tackle right here at number 9. Then for the Eagles at number 10, they're going to go with Kalijah Kancey, the D lineman from Pittsburgh. Obviously, losing Javon Hargrave sucks, but if Kalijah Kancey is as good as advertised, all you really did there was save some money. I think he's got upside as a pass rusher as well. And I think that even though he's a bit undersized, I think it would be quite funny to pair him with Jordan Davis at D tackle, who is massive. The height and weight discrepancy would be pretty funny there. So I think the Eagles are going to continue to bolster their D line and go with Kalijah Kancey. Next, Tennessee is going to go with a corner. They're going to go with Christian Gonzalez, who is, in my opinion, the most athletic corner, the most fluid corner. He has maybe not the most upside, but I think he's probably the most pro-ready out of Oregon. So they're going to go with him. Fits Mike Vrabel's scheme. They got to get back to defense. New GM. He's going to want to rebuild. So they want good, quality football players. And I think Christian Gonzalez is that for them. So number 12, the Houston Texans are going to go with Jackson Smith and Jigba. Get a receiver for Bryce Young to throw to. I'm pretty confident in the 2 and 12 combo being quarterback and receiver for Houston. I think that they know that they need to have a good offense to compete with the guys in their division like Jacksonville, who have gotten leaps and bounds better with Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne and Christian Kirk and all them. So they know they need to go offense. In my first mock draft, I had them going defense because of D'Amico Ryans, but I think that the Texans already have some nice young pieces on defense like Derek Stingley and Jalen Petrie, etc. So I think that they're going to want to go offense and open up their firepower a little bit here. Next, I have the Green Bay Packers, which some of you might be asking, oh, is this the Jets? I'm very convinced that the Jets are going to have to give up the first round pick for Aaron Rodgers. So I'm counting 13 and 15 as Green Bay's, for those of you wondering. So, number 13 for the Green Bay Packers, they're going to go Brian Branch. Listen, Darnell Savage was not good last year. The secondary is getting a bit older. I think they want to infuse some talent. The Packers' run defense at times was really bad last year. I think Brian Branch could help with that tremendously, and he could fill a big need at safety. And when you have an extra top 15 pick to play with, I normally wouldn't advise picking a safety in the top 15. But when you have a top 15 pick to essentially play with, then I say go ahead, fill a big need for yourself. New England, Lucas Van Ness to me seems like a good move there for them. Listen, they need juice. They need something in New England. They're pretty. I don't want to say talentless. They're just boring right now. Essentially, is the word I would use to describe New England. So, I would go get you a pass rusher in the first round, a guy who Bill Belichick can ideally mold into being, a Matthew Judon prototype with him in the locker room. So that's what I would say for the Patriots. Back to the Green Bay Packers. I have the first tight end going off the board, Dalton Kinsad out of Utah. Losing Robert Tanyan, probably losing Mercedes Lewis. You're going to want to surround Jordan Love with as many weapons as possible. And I think that Dalton Kinsad is a good security blanket for Jordan Love to depend on. I think, if I'm not mistaken, oh no, because Jordan Love went to Utah State, so never mind. So never mind on that. I was going to say maybe they were teammates, but good to get him a tight end. Good to get him some weapons. It's him and Michael Mayer are the two top tight ends in the draft. So I think most people prefer Kinsad. So good for them. Next, we have the Washington Commanders. They're going to take Devon Witherspoon out of Illinois. Ron Rivera, A, has an Illinois bias, but B, um, loves him some physical football players, loves him some defensive guys. Devon Witherspoon is physical. He can come up, he can tackle, he'll get in your face. I think that really sparks the interest of Ron Rivera, and I think he is going to be a Washington Commander. Next, for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I have them taking Paris Johnson, the tackle out of Ohio State. Listen, I think they like what they have in Kenny Pickett and George Pickens and Najee Harris and Deontay Johnson. They have a lot of good young offensive players. But unfortunately, you guys won't get to see any of them if Kenny Pickett's always getting sacked and harassed like he was last year. So to fix the offensive line, they go and they get a guy from a blue blood program in Ohio State, a guy who can keep Kenny Pickett upright and can help this offense flourish. Next, the Detroit Lions are going to go with Nolan Smith. Nolan Smith, who really impressed at the combine, ran very fast, was very athletic, reportedly crushed all of his combine interviews. He is a guy who I think is going to go in the middle of the first round right here. So, Detroit, they didn't make the playoffs last year, but they had a really good sign from Aiden Hutchinson, from some of their young defensive players as well. They went out in free agency. They got C.J. Gardner-Johnson. They got Cortland Sutton. I'm sorry, not Cortland Sutton. They got Cam Sutton, the corner. So they have stocked up on the defensive backfield. Now let's get another pass rusher and fill in here and make this defense really just as dominant as possible. I mean, if you think about it, their defensive line would now be Aiden Hutchinson, Jalen Carter, and Nolan Smith. I mean, that is a great pass rush. And they have the potential, I think, to be kings of the North going forward. Next, Tampa Bay Buccaneers are in just a shit position right now. They have no talent on the roster. They have no quarterback. They have no good picks. So I'd say best player available, Brian Brisset. Rebuild that defensive line a little bit. That's the key. That's what won you your first Super Bowl. So just rebuild that defensive line and see if you can go somewhere in the next few years. But I think Brian Brisset is probably your best option. Again, he's versatile. He can rush the passer. His 2021 film's a little bit better than his 2022, but I think that you still like the upside there. And a lot of bad things happen for Brian Brisset. He was having a rough year off the field, from what I've heard. So I say Brian Brisset for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Next, the Seattle Seahawks are going to take Joey Porter. What is so intriguing about Joey Porter to the Seahawks? Well, he's got long arms, and Pete Carroll is a sucker for long arms. If you think I'm lying, look at Richard Sherman, look at Tariq Woolen, look at Brandon Browner, look at any of these guys. Long arm physical corners are Pete Carroll's there's favorite. There is favorite, right? You know, every parent says they don't have a favorite child, but we all know that they do, right? And if you're a sibling out there, or if you have siblings, you know which one of your siblings amongst yourselves is the favorite from mom or dad. And Pete Carroll, you know, he might claim that he doesn't have a favorite archetype for corners, but he does, and it's long armed corners. Loves them to death. Joey Porter fits that mold. Got good ball skills, can break stuff up. I think the only in watching some of his film, the only real like uh I don't know. The only weakness to his game, maybe his hips aren't as fluid, but I don't think that that's a big concern. I think Joey Porter is still a good corner and a good steal for Seattle at number 20. Los Angeles Chargers. I think I've had this in every mock draft. To me, it just makes so much sense. I'm gonna say Zay Flowers. Um, Speedy receiver, can separate, can stretch the field. That's what the Chargers need, especially with Justin Herbert probably getting a bag in the near future. Receiver makes sense to surround him with. Baltimore Ravens. Now that they are um, having a new quarterback, I think they're going to add another wide receiver in addition to Jordan Addison. So now, if you think about my ideal scenario, the Ravens will now have Rashad Bateman, Michael Pittman, and Jordan Addison at receiver for Anthony Richardson and Tyler Huntley. A far cry from what they've had in the years past. Um, so I think if you can't work something out with Lamar Jackson, having a much better receiving room is a decent consolation prize. So Jordan Addison for the Baltimore Ravens. Minnesota, they're going to go Deontay Banks. They lost Patrick Peterson, and their defensive backfield last year was shit. So they're going to want to stock up on corners. The corner from Maryland, who is, in my opinion, the fourth best corner in this class, but it's a pretty top-heavy corner group, I believe. So I think being the fourth best corner is not necessarily a terrible thing in this draft class. Let's move on to Jacksonville. O'Cyrus Torrance. I really like this move. I think it just fits a lot. They need interior offensive line help to keep Trevor Lawrence upright. I wonder if he can play center for the Jaguars because I know he played center. I believe it was Louisiana Lafayette he went to before Florida. I know he played center there, but I'm sure he's got a little center flexibility. So you could just draft a center here for O'Cyrus Torrance for the Jaguars. Next for the Giants, I'm going to go Josh Downs, the receiver out of North Carolina. I think they still need weapons, and I think that adding Darren Waller was nice. Adding Darius Slayton and Paris Campbell was good, but you don't have kind of that guy. You know what I mean? So I think Josh Downs is going to be a good addition for the Giants going forward. Next, the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys are going to surprise a lot of people right here, and although they have some needs, I think that they are going to go with Bijan Robinson. Yes, Bijan Robinson, the running back out of Texas. Now I know they did just franchise tag Tony Pollard, and that's cool. But that guarantees Tony Pollard 1 year as being the lead back, or at least the most compensated back. But you also got to remember, the Dallas Cowboys just got rid of the mistake of paying Zeke that big money. So maybe they're hesitant to pay Tony Pollard that big money. A, B, Jerry Jones is always looking for star power in Dallas, and this would be something that would fill seats and sell tickets. C, Bijan Robinson is already a Texas legend, so staying in the state would be, I think, good for the brand, good for the fans, everything like that, right? And D, I think that Bijan Robinson is better than Tony Pollard. So I think that the Cowboys, they surprise a lot of people right here, and they go with Bijan Robinson to be their running back of the future. I think Cowboys fans would love it. And if he could replicate what Zeke did in Zeke's first 3-4 years of his career, then that's to me is a good pick. That's a great pick. People get it confused, and I know I'm going to get comments about this saying, "Oh, well, you shouldn't take a running back in the first round because that's what the Cowboys did, and look what happened with Zeke." In my opinion, you can take a running back in the first round, but don't pay him the big bucks because do you think the first 3-4 years of the Zeke experience, the Cowboys regretted him taking, what was he, fourth? Okay, fourth might have been a little high, but do you think they regret taking him in the first round? No. It's when they paid him. He was just a completely different running back. So I think that's what the Cowboys regret. But the selection of Bijan Robinson, and again, if you're the Cowboys, the NFC is weak right now. And obviously, Philly in your division is really good, and San Francisco is really good. But outside of Philly and San Francisco, who are the really good teams in the NFC? I think the Cowboys could cement themselves and give themselves a legitimate shot to make it to the promised land, especially if they add a big piece like Bijan Robinson. So good for Bijan Robinson. He's a Dallas Cowboy. Buffalo Bills are going to take Broderick Jones, the tackle out of Georgia, show up the pass rush for Josh Allen. I will say I think if Bijan Robinson falls, he's a Buffalo Bill. I don't think he's getting past the Bills. Cincinnati then is going to go with Michael Mayer. They lost Hayden Hurst in the draft. I'm sorry, in free agency to the Panthers. and they're looking for a dynamic weapon at tight end. If you could have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd and Michael Mayer and Joe Mixon, that's a great offense. And again, they're in that arms race with the Bills and the Chiefs and all of them. So the more they can improve their offense, the more high powered they can be, the better off that they'll be against those guys. Um, Next, I think New Orleans, they're going to take Mozzie Smith, the defensive lineman out of Michigan. Because why the hell not? I mean, they're kind of in the same position as the Buccaneers, where they are just in a really bad spot and they don't have a lot of draft capital. So take best player available and pray for the best. Next, the Philadelphia Eagles are going to take Will McDonald, the edge out of Iowa State. Again, not a team with a lot of needs. So I think best player available is the model here. Will McDonald, I think, is a good pass rusher out of Iowa State, so why not? And then Kansas City, DeJuan Jones, the tackle out of Ohio State. I've been recently hearing a lot about him. I think he's been rising up draft boards a little bit, so I'd like to see him and Jawan Taylor be the tackles to anchor that Kansas City offensive line. But that's the mock draft, guys. Please don't forget to subscribe if you like this video. Let me know what your opinions are on it down below. Right here, I'll have the Lamar Jackson video that I'm about to record. So if you want to check it out, it'll be right here. And I will catch you guys in the next video. Have a great rest of your day, and I love you. Goodbye.